My name is Jimmy Gavin. I came originally from County Clare. Now I'm living here in Dublin since the early 60s. So a song I'm going to sing for you now is my lovely Rosie Clare. It's a very popular song at parties and places, etc., etc. So here it goes. My lovely Rose of Clare. Oh, my lovely Rose of Clare, you're the sweetest girl I know. You're the queen of all the roses, like the pretty flowers that grow. You are the sunshine of my life, so beautiful and fair. And I will always love you, my lovely Rose of Clare. Oh, my lovely Rose of Clare, you're the sweetest girl I know. You're the queen of all the roses, like the pretty flowers that grow. You are the sunshine of my life, so beautiful and fair. And I will always love you, my lovely Rose of Clare. As we walk down by the river bank, where the lovely Shannon lies, and listening to the nightingale singing songs for you and I. And now to wish you all farewell to all you people there, for I have stolen the heart of one, she's my lovely Rose of Clare. Oh, my lovely Rose of Clare, you're the sweetest girl I know. You're the queen of all the roses, like the pretty flowers that grow. You are the sunshine of my life, so beautiful and fair. And I will always love you, my lovely Rose of Clare. That's it.
Perfect, lovely. Now we're going to get you to do the Kilrush tragedy. Can you tell me the story behind that song?
Well, this was a song that was composed many years ago. It actually happened in the mid-50s. And I was in the local village one day, and this guy, he was about to go to England next day. Tommy Cluain was his name. And he said, I have a song here, he said, that I'm after writing about the tragedy that occurred on the River Shannon. So he went and he wrote it out for me, and I put my own air to it. And it's about three young guys from Kilrush. One of them was a solicitor, Kate O'Shea, and he was going to go up the River Shannon in a boat up to a place called Cuerden, near Carrigaholt. And they never got there. They were advised by people coming in from Scathry Island that day at the pier in Kilrush not to go up the River Shannon, that there was a big swell and a spring tide running, and that it could be very dangerous. So they had a curragh with an outboard engine, but they never got to their destination. And a few days after, the boat was found in Ballybunion Bay. So the bodies were never found, and people were out searching along the river banks, all along the Shannon, to see if they would find them. And the song went a bit like this. Good people dear, do lend an ear to what I have to say about a great disaster that occurred off Cuerden Bay. The broad Atlantic Ocean has added to its toll of another three young heroes. May the Lord receive their souls. Three young joyful heroes were known in their native town. The elder, a great solicitor, had won himself renown. A cold and watery grave they made on that November's night. May God and his Saviour grant them peace and happiness in eternal life. We tender our deepest sympathy with the dear ones left behind. To the parents of those noble boys, so worthy, true and kind. Clancy and Crotty were their names, and O'Shea makes three. May the Lord have mercy on their souls for all eternity. So that was it.
Did you ever find the bodies?
Never found the bodies. The bodies were never found, yeah.
Wow. And why did they go out?
They went up to draw up a will for a farmer in Quern. And the solicitor was Kate O'Shea, and Clancy and Crotty were his friends. And another guy that I only met recently, Michael Daly, who was to go with them, and he just missed them by a few minutes.
Wow.
He was out someplace and he didn't get back in time, and it was getting late in the evening. And of course, they had been advised by people coming in from Scathry Island. Scathry Island in the 50s was occupied by quite a number of families. They all have left Scathry Island now and come into the mainland. And people were out searching for weeks and weeks. Michael Crotty, father of one of the boys, his wife was the famous Mrs. Crotty who played the concertina. And he used to walk down to Buck's Corner at the corner of Francis Street every day for about 2 months, expecting that he'd see his son coming up from the boat that came into the quays in Kilrush. So it was a great tragedy, and that all happened in the mid-50s. I was only a very young fellow at the time. I remember to be out harvesting potatoes in a field when somebody came along and told us there was a great tragedy after occurring on the River Shannon. 3 boys in Kilrush are lost, and they're out searching for them. So it was a tragedy.
And were they, what age were the guys who died?
They were in their late 20s.
Very good, very good.
So
Okay.
I know their brothers. I know Michael Crotty and I know Raymond Clancy. I know Kate O'Shea's father, who was also a solicitor. He had his offices in Francis Street in Kilrush. So I still remember them there. But I was down in Kilrush about 2 years ago, and I was asked to sing a song in a pub. And I sang that song, and there was a lot of people there from Kilrush, elderly people who had never heard of the song, and I had to sing it twice for them. And some of them, they wrote down the words, and that's history now. That's in the 50s.
Well, now we have it recorded in history. We have
Yeah.
it. Now, I have another song here that you're going to sing, The Boys of County Mayo. Why do you like this one?
Well, of course, the boys from the County Mayo, a lot of people immigrated from Mayo and all the western counties and Sligo and Galway and Clare and all up the coast to America. And that was back, I suppose, in the 30s and 40s when there wasn't any employment in Ireland those years, and England hadn't opened up to us after the Second World War. And they're all taking the boat from Queenstown in Cork. There was no flying that time. And they sailed out from Cork. Actually, in 1956, I drove a neighbour of mine, Jimmy Chambers, in a borrowed car to Cove. And he was making his trip to New York to his brother. And he arrived in Ellis Island and he met his brother there. And he stayed with his brother for some while, and then he moved to Bailey Avenue in the Bronx. So Jim, God rest him, he passed away only last year. And I have great memories of all those people.
Okay, well,
But the song I'm going to sing to you now, I don't know who composed it, but it was about the boys from the County Mayo. And it went a bit like this. Far away from the land of the shamrock and heather, in search of a living as exiles we roamed. But whenever we chanced to assemble together, we think of a land where each one had a home. These homes are destroyed and our soil confiscated. The hand of the tyrant brought plunder and woe. The fires are now quenched and our hearts desolated in our once happy homes in the County Mayo. Long years have since passed with our hearts full of sorrow, ere the land of the shamrock we left far behind. And oh, how we'd like to go back there tomorrow, to the scenes of our youth which we still bear in mind. At the days of our childhood, 'tis now we regret them. They cling to our vision wherever we go, and the friends of our youth, we will never forget them. They too were exiled from the County Mayo. Ballinrobe to Killala, from Swinford to Balla, Newport, Westport and Old Castle Bar, Ballyhonus, Belmullet, Croagh-Patrick, God love it, and the homes of whose brave men are famed near and far. From Galway to Dublin, from Derry to Kerry, New York, Bristol and Boston also, then Pittsburgh, Chicago, Detroit and Toronto. There are stout-hearted men from the county Mayo. So boys, stick together in all kinds of weather. Never show the white feather wherever ye go. Be like a brother and help one another, like true-hearted men from Clondalkin. Shin shin.
And tell us, what did Jimmy Chambers end up doing in New York, and how did he get on?
Jimmy Chambers ended up in America working on the building. He stayed with his brother Joe in the Queens. And then he got a job. He used to visit Gaelic Park, and he made a contact in Gaelic Park that offered him a job that'd be indoors for the winter, working in a printing factory. And his job in the printing factory was greasing the machinery in the evening when everybody finished work at 5 o'clock, and he'd work all through night. And he worked there for over 30 years, and eventually became a supervisor. And he spent all his working life, then you would say, working in the printing firm. And that was ideal for him because, as you know, the climate in New York is very cold at winter time, and he was in from the cold weather, away from the building construction. But he passed away here about 2 years ago, and I used to visit him pretty often when I'd go to America. I've been to visit my sister down in well, she's down in
Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah, Fort Lauderdale, Florida. A lovely place. And I'd always call and stay about a week with Jimmy on my way back to Ireland.
And where did he live in New York?
He lived in the Bronx, Bailey Avenue. So I got to know it very well because I'd visited a number of times, both my wife and I.
And did you get to go down to Gaelic Park with him?
I went to Gaelic Park several times. On Sundays, Gaelic Park, all the Irish, both from Clare and a lot of Kerry people, and it was a great, Mayo, Galway. It was a great place to make a contact with people who would offer you a job, if you'd like. But it was a place that they all accumulated every Sunday afternoon. There'd be a match, and it was Manhattan College who owns the ground actually there in the Bronx. Okay. And yes, I have great memories of Jimmy. Grew up with him at home. We used to be out hunting rabbits on a Sunday. And one particular time we borrowed a ferret off a neighbour. And the ferret broke the muzzle that was on his mouth, and he got a rabbit, and he killed the rabbit, and he stayed in all Sunday. We tried to get him out of the ditch, putting hay fires to try to smoke him out of the ditch. But we didn't fail. But after about 2 days, he was a very quiet little animal. He came down at this farm yard that was quite close to the area where we had been ferreting. And the woman saw this ferret. He was yellow in colour, and she thought he was a yellow rat. And she got a shovel. She clapped it on him and killed the poor ferret. And when her husband came in that evening after being working on the farm, she said, "I'm after killing a fine white rat." But that was the poor ferret. That's how he met his fate.
Okay, now the next song I'd like you to do, and if you could tell me a little bit about it, or why you like it, the Old Bog Road.
Ah, yes, the Old Bog Road. That's a song that was composed about people who immigrated. And a lot of people who immigrated to America, they never again returned to Ireland. I had 3 aunties who went out in the late 20s, early 30s to Chicago, and an uncle, and they never again set foot in Ireland, County Clare. But of course, when their parents died, money was very scarce, and I suppose they didn't have much money accumulated in America because they had to pay for their accommodation, and they didn't come home, and they'd be grieving, of course, for their parents who died or their relatives. But the song went anyway about the Old Bog Road. And now I'm going to sing a few verses of the Old Bog Road. My feet are here on Broadway this blessed harvest morn, and oh, the ache that's in them for the spot where I was born. My weary hands are blistered from work and cold and heat, and ought to swing aside today through fields of Irish wheat. Had I the chance to wander back our own a king's abode, I'd sooner see the hawthorn tree down the old bog road. My mother died last springtime when Ireland's fields were green. The neighbours said her waken was the finest ever seen. There were snowdrops and primroses piled up around her bed, and Ferns church was crowded when the funeral mass was read. And here was I on Broadway, building bricks per load, when they carried out her coffin down the old bog road. When I was young and innocent, my mind was ill at ease, though dreaming of America and of gold beyond the seas. Oh, sorrow takes their money, it's hard to get that same. But what's the world to any man when no one speaks his name? I had my day, and here I am, building bricks per load, along 3,000 miles away from the old bog road. There was a decent girl at home who used to walk with me. Her eyes were soft and sorrowful, like the moonbeams on the sea. Her name was Mary Dwyer, but that was long ago. The ways of God are wiser than the things a man may know. She died the year I left her, and bitter was my load. I'd bet forget the time we met on the old bog road. This is another song. Of course, a lot of the songs that I'm singing, they're all about people who immigrated to America and I suppose Australia as well many, many years ago. And I like the Isle of Innisfree. Of course, it's off the Isle of Innisfree is off the west coast of Ireland, off Sligo.
Okay.
And I took a fancy to that song. I heard it in the radio a good few years ago, and I picked up the words of it, and I felt comfortable about singing it. It's a nice song. I've met some folks who say that I'm a dreamer, and I've no doubt there is truth in what they say. But sure, a body's bound to be a dreamer when all the things he loved are far away, and precious things are dreams unto an exile. They take him o'er a land across the sea, especially when it happens he's an exile from that dear lovely Isle of Innisfree. And when the moonlight peeps across the rooftops of this great city, wondrous though it be, I scarcely feel its wonder or its laughter. I'm once again back home on Innisfree. I wander o'er green hills and sleepy valleys to find a peace no other land could know. I hear the birds make music fit for angels, and watch the rivers laughing as they flow. And then into a humble shack I wander, my dear old home, and tenderly behold the folks I love around the turf fire gather. On bended knees the rosary is told. But dreams don't last, though dreams are not forgotten. And soon I'm back to stern reality. Although they pave the footways here with gold dust, I still would choose my Isle of Innisfree. Although they pave the footways here with gold dust, I still would choose my Isle of Innisfree.
You mentioned in the song there turf and tough fires. Did you have them at home, and where did you get
We
the
did,
turf?
yes, indeed, we had hoped for. We had about 2 acres of bog. It was divided by the Land Commission. It was about 3 miles from our home place. And many is the day I spent in the bog, cutting the turf and turning the turf when I was a young fella. And my brothers with me, and we used to sell some of it. Lorry guys used to come up from Limerick, and we'd have it saved, and around the month of June we'd have it ready. The lorries would arrive, and it was very welcome money to get for the turf. We used to cut the banks of turf by hand, by slaying. And yes, it provided a nice income for the family.
What does the term foot and turf, what does that mean?
Putting it standing up, you put it standing up like that to get it up off the ground to dry it, let the air get through it. You put about 3 or 4 of them on the bottom like that, 2 on the top and 1, and that's what they call for. You turn it at first, you spread it along the ground, and then you turn it with a fork or by hand. And after a couple of weeks, you come along and you put a standing up foot in the turf. Well, it was an old saying anyway, you know.
So how long would it take to say from cutting turf to bringing it home?
To bring it home, it takes 6 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, it all depended on the weather. We used to draw it home on horse and carts then and stack it up at home. It was fuel. But of course we used to get the bog dale as well if you go down deep. The Ireland, of course, many centuries ago was covered with trees, and the trees fell down, and we used to get trees that fall down. We'd dip down about 12 sods down. You'd cut, say, 4 sods this year, you'd cut 4 sods deeper, and you'd be going down deeper all the time. And the wood that was there, some of them would be 20 feet in length, and they used to be cut up with crosscuts, man at each side, and they used to make scallops out of it for thatching houses. When I was a young fellow, all the houses were thatched with wheaten straw, and the scallops would be twisted, and they'd pin them in. They used to make them in V shapes, and that stuff would never break. It was very, very tough wood.
And when the turf would dry out, would it stay dry then, even if you had it
It
outside?
would stay dry. We'd bring it home and stack it up. And if you had a cover, you could cover it with better still, or cover it with rushes. That was good covering. And then that'd be your fire for the winter with some wood that you'd cut in the farm, maybe clearing ditches and stuff like that, and you'd have wood and you cut it up. And it was an open fire, and the pots were hanging on the crane, kettle sitting on the crook, and the kettle as well. And a lot of the baking was done, of course, in the oven. My mother used to bake, there was a big family, I suppose there, 11 or 12, and she used to bake 10-stone bag of flour every week with brown flour mixed through it, and loaves of bread. And it used to be beautiful bread in this oven with a cover in it, and that put some of the red coals on top of the cover. It'd take about an hour or so to bake.
And there'd be a fire going every day?
Fire would be going every day, and at night time then you throw some of the coals up and through the acid, and it'd be kind of smouldering in the morning, and you put that together and put more turf around it, and it was an open fire, open chimney, and it was wonderful. But the way things are going at the present moment, an open fire with turf fire would be a thing of the past.
And when there was the open fire and in the evenings and all that, there was no television, of course, no electricity.
No television.
What did you do?
You know, a lot of stories were told, but of course you had a lot of house dancing then. Neighbours of ours, the McGraths, every Sunday night you'd have a house ceilidh. The gramophone would be playing, or some musician would come in and play in the concertina. Clare was a very popular place for the concertina music and the violin, maybe the tin whistle. And that was all entertainment. I'd go out when I was a young fella, go with my brothers visiting, and you'd have the cup of tea and the homemade sweet loaf, as we used to call it, a few sultanas, and white bread, and it used to be a lovely bit of butter and jam in it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But yes, people were self-sufficient that time. They'd have the bacon, they'd kill their own pig, and you'd have plenty of potatoes, cabbage and turnips and carrots, and a lot of it. You'd be eating bacon and cabbage 7 days a week.
Wow. Now the next song I'm going to ask you to do is A Bunch of Time. Why do you like this one?
I took a fancy to it. Foster and Allen made that song famous, of course. And I liked it somehow. I like the air, but it suited me. But I've been singing old songs for, my God, I've been singing songs for over 60 or 70 years, at concerts and stuff like that. And I never sang a song to get paid for it as a living. But I like the singing. But there was a big family of us there, and my mother was in charge of the choir. And we used to take up 2 seats in the church, in the back of the church, and my mother was in charge of the choir, and we learned all the hymns. And I got into singing, and our teacher at school, Mr. Kelly, every Friday for half an hour in the afternoon, we'd have a singing and all the boys. But one advice Mr. Kelly gave us was never to try to imitate other singers. Sing with your own voice. And I suppose I stuck to that. I never tried to change to imitate anybody else, even though there was great singers down through the years, that I had some of their songs, John McCormack, and, all the great men that have passed away now,
And who would be, if you have any famous singers that you went to actually hear or saw sing in a room or in a concert, or anybody who stands out for you?
Irish, of course, Bing Crosby was famous. He sang a lot. Galway Bay especially, yeah. Yeah, I might give you a verse of the Galway Bay there, so on.
Well,
but a song that I'd like to sing, if you know, is A Bunch of Time, was made famous by Foster and Allen. And went a bit like this. Come all you maidens young and fair, all you that are blooming in your prime, always beware and keep your garden fair. Let no man steal away your time, for time it is a precious thing, and time brings all things to my mind. Time with all its flavour, along with all its joy. Now time brings all things to my mind. Once I had a bunch of time, I thought it never would decay. Then came a lusty sailor who chanced to pass this way. He stole my bunch of time away. A sailor gave to me a rose that never would decay. He gave it to me to keep me reminded of when he stole my time away. So come all you maidens young and fair, all you that are blooming in your prime, always beware and keep your garden fair. Let no man steal away your time, for time it is a precious thing, and time brings all things to my mind. Time with all its labour, along with all its joy. Now time brings all things to an end. That's it.
You mentioned there Galway Bay.
Yeah.
I'm going to get you to sing that now in a second, but you remember you telling me a story, and you told it to Marty and Tom Heaney on Radio na Bealtaine one day about you used to bring turf, or you brought turf from Clare to West Galway. Can you tell us that story?
What with? No, it was.
Was it the other way around?
It was the building of a power station in Rossmuck in Connemara. I was a young fella at that time, I suppose only 18 or 19, I was driving a lorry for a guy in Kilrush, and I had to go to Gáibhín in Kerry to pick up all the construction, planks and wheelbarrows and the lot, and bring it to the next station that was being built in Connemara, up in Screeb in Connemara. So while I was up there, then I brought a load of seaweed from Galway down to Kilrush. There was a seaweed factory there. And I don't know how do we survive. I was a very young fellow at the time, but the lorries weren't as modern as what they were today, with power steering like this today and power clutch and all that. It was difficult to drive, but we got through it anyway. But I was very lucky. I had a record that I never had an accident in all those years. And when I came to Dublin here, I drove the buses. I went into haulage myself, and I'd never a claim against insurance, because my policy always was to yield. No matter who was, they'd be in the wrong, I'd let them off, and keep going away, drive carefully all the time. One advice I got when I was very young about driving from this particular guy was, I was driving his car, a Ford Prefect. I was only about 16 or 17. Drive as fast as you like where you can see, but where you cannot see, be very careful, especially in twisty, narrow roads. So that's a policy that I adopted all through my life. And I taught my 3 boys and my daughter, Barry, Brian and Jim and Anne-Marie, taught them to drive. And as far as I know, they never had an accident. They played by the rules all the time. And we'd have less accident on the roads today if people adopted the rules and take that time and leave in time if you're going on a journey. And any person that rushes, they're going to get into trouble. So have respect for other road users as well. That's been my advice to them at this hour of my life. Now, I'll never see 80 again, only 80 on the door. But thanks be to God, we are lucky. So far, so good.
Okay. Do Galway Bay for us.
This is a song, you know, it was well known all over the world, but Bing Crosby made it famous. And I like this song. I like Galway. Galway is a beautiful place. Of course, Connemara. We visited, my wife and I and the lads, when they were young, we visited the Arden Islands, Inishmore, Inishmore and Inishman. But lovely place out the Atlantic. Of course, where I was born and raised in Clare, I was looking out the Atlantic anyway. So I suppose we didn't appreciate the Atlantic because we were so used to, brought up with it, and it was a treacherous seas in winter time. You see the high waves blowing up. But however, anyway, I'll sing a few verses of Galway Bay. It may be someday I'll go back again to Ireland, if it's only at the closing of my days. You might sit and watch the moon rise over Clare, or see the sun going down on Galway Bay. Now to see again the ripple on the trout streams, the women on the meadows making hay, or to sit beside a turf fire in a cabin and watch the barefoot garçons at their play. Now the wind that blows across the sea from Ireland is perfumed by the heather as it blows, and the women on the uplands digging praties speak that language that the stranger do not know. For that stranger come and try and teach us their way. They scorn us for being what we are, so they might as well go chasing after moonbeams, or light a penny candle from a star. Now if there's going to be a life hereafter, somehow I'm sure there's going to be, I will ask my God to let me make my heaven in that dear land across the Irish Sea. So it may be someday I'll go back again to Ireland, if it's only at the closing of my days. You may sit and watch the moon rise over Clare, or see the sun going down on Galway Bay. Well, the connection I have with Dublin is my son Jim has been manager now for the last number of years. He was with that group of players, fantastic group of players, who won the 5 in a row. Jim has been involved with Dublin for over 22 years, and we're all very proud of him, and we're all very proud, very, very proud of all the great players that he inherited. Every one of them. Jack McCaffrey, of course, great favourite of mine. Michael Dara, Kilkenny, name them all. Their goalkeeper. So, everyone, James McCarthy, Philly, the whole. I got to know them all down through the years, and fair play to Jim. Every final, at least, he'd bring me onto the pitch and he'd bring me in to meet the players, and we'd go to the hotel together, and he always looked after his dad and his mum and his brothers. But they were the greatest group of players that I have ever seen, and I'm around a long time. I played a fair bit of football myself, but this group of players that Jim inherited, with all the accolades and all the praise Jim got, it's these group of players that made Jim Gavin to what he is today, and we're all so proud of every one of those players, and may the good Lord give them health and strength to continue on playing football and to live their lives as I have seen them, decent, well-educated young guys. But a song I'd like to sing now for you is Dublin in the Rare Old Times. Ronnie Drew, I think, that used to sing that song, and it went a bit like this. Raised on songs and stories, heroes of renown, the passing tales and glories that once was Dublin town, the hallowed haunted houses, the haunting children's rhymes that once was Dublin city in the rare old times. Ring a Rosie, as the lights declines, oh, I'll remember Dublin city in the rare old times. My name it is Sean Dempsey, as Dublin as can be, born hard of late in Pimlico, in a house that ceased to be. My trade it was a cooper, last out to redundancy, like my house that fell to progress, my trade's a memory. And I courted Peggy Dignam, as pretty as you please, a rogue and a child of Mary, from the rebel liberties. I lost her to a student chap, with skin as black as coal. When he took her off to Birmingham, she took away my soul. Ring a Rosie, as the lights declines, oh, I'll remember Dublin city in the rare old times. Now the years have made me bitter, and the gargle dams my brain, for Dublin keeps on changing, and nothing seems the same. The pillar and the Met has gone, the Royal has since pulled down, and the grey unyielding concrete makes a city of my town. Ring a Rosie, as the lights declines, oh, I'll remember Dublin city in the rare old times. Fare well, sweet Anna Liffey, I can no longer stay and watch the new glass cages creep up along the quay. My mind's too full of memories, too old to hear new chimes. I am part of what was Dublin in the rare old times. Ring a Rosie, as the lights declines. Oh, I'll remember Dublin city in the rare old times. That's it. Shin.
Okay, that's good.
You can delete that one if you want to.
No.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to sing, or are you happy with all you've done?
Is
Is there a song you'd like? I mean, we've plenty of time. You might do one more if you want it. If you don't, we'll wrap it.
if you want to delete, you could pick out whatever you want to pick there. Well,
I've loads of stuff there. I've loads of stuff there, and they're all great.
The Green Glens of Antrim.
Okay. Now again, I need you to stand back. And go to your left.
Yeah.
Just out to your left slightly. Yeah. Okay. Just introduce the song. What you're going to say.
This is a song, believe it or not, that I'd like to sing for you. The Green Glens of Antrim. Believe it, when I got married to my wife in 1964, we spent our honeymoon in the north of Ireland. So we toured all the glens, Causeway, all parts of Northern Ireland at the time. And things were reasonably quite enough in those years. But I picked up this song later on in life, and I like the song, I suppose, yeah. Green Glens of Antrim. Far across yonder blue lies a true fairyland, with the sea rippling over the shingle and sand, where the gay honeysuckle is luring the bee, and the green glens of Antrim are calling to me. Sure, if only I knew how the lamp of the moon turns a blue Irish bay to a silver lagoon, you'd imagine a picture of heaven it could be, where the green glens of Antrim are calling to me. Sure, I'd hope to return to my own Cushendun. 'Tis the one place for me that can outshine them all. Sure, I'd know every stone, I'd recall every tree, where the green glens of Antrim are welcoming me. Sure, I'd be where the people are simple and kind, and among them the ones who've been on my mind. Sure, I'd pray to the world that in peace let me be, where the green glens of Antrim are welcome on me. Sure, I'd halt at a cabin close down by the shore, and I'd knock with my heart at that wee cabin door, while the sun showers gold on the lap of the sea, where the green glens of Antrim are calling to me. Sure, I'd be where the people are simple and kind, and among them the ones who've been on my mind. Sure, I'd pray to the world that in peace let me be, where the green glens of Antrim are welcome in me. Shin.